Hey guys, it's your boy NJNP. We're going to be discussing Samurott-H, and I am joined by
Osmo Balls. The meme. It's real.
Yeah, so I'm joined by my fellow OU council person, and we are going to be going over this amazing amount. It's honestly just the impact that it's having on the tier is tremendous. It's unique. We've never had anything like this before. I mean, that goes without saying. It is super effective as being a lead, choice scarf, SD potential sweeper, and even utility when it comes to assault vest. And we're gonna break down each set. But yeah, what stands out to you?
All right, so let's. So obviously, we do obviously have to talk about the impact that Ceaseless Edge in and of itself has on the tier. I mean, not only is it boosted by sharpness, so it's even stronger, but the idea of exerting pressure while laying spikes is honestly, it's not only unprecedented, but it also gets rid of arguably one of the greatest flaws in spikes, being that it doesn't do anything else. It sets up the spike, and obviously that's good because it's hazards, but you can exploit that to some extent, I think. But the fact that Ceaseless Edge is not only in and of itself a strong move, but can also just stack those spikes, makes it a very, very easy move to just click. Because even if you're running into a resist or something that switches in easily into its attacks, setting that spike can really set up the stage for offensive teammates as well as even Samurott itself. And Samurott. What's also interesting about Samurott is it's not just a ceaseless edge bot. It's actually got a really interesting kit. It's, for one, it's got an incredibly dynamic dual typing of water dark, so it's a really strong type offensively.
Yeah,
but defensively,
we've seen that
you get a ton of resist.
We've seen that with Crawdaunt pull that off effectively, but no, go on.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And its typing is rather premium into the metagame right now. Being able to resist things like King Gambit's stabs, being able to resist Goldengo's stabs is really nice. Things like that. And also being able to resist fire can sometimes come into play, namely with, coming in on some Slowking sets, or Blowking, to be clear.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes Heatran. It's definitely it's definitely interesting too, because it's also got a very solid offensive profile, simply because of how sharpness interacts with most of its coverage. It gets Razor Shell, which is a really absurdly strong move with sharpness that also has a 50% chance to drop your defense. It boosts Aqua Cutter. It boosts Sacred Sword, which is like the perfect coverage move for it, pretty much. It even gets Stab Knockoff. It's got pretty competent mixed defenses, so you can even do mixed attacking. It even has like Taunt and Encore, which even makes it not as easy to exploit with maybe setup if you're in something that's maybe able to take on its stab combination.
Yeah. I mean, as you mentioned earlier, the fact that you're able to deal damage and apply pressure while you're setting hazards makes it not passive at all. It is consistently applying pressure, and its typing is fantastic. If it was like, let's say, Fire Dark instead of Water Dark, then Great Tusk would be like, oh, this is food,
yeah, exactly.
And so that's exactly why Cleaver has failed. We thought
100%.
that Cleaver was going to be a really cool option, but it really is non-existent in the metagame, and probably will continue to be non-existent. Sam is able to pull off so many sets effectively, and yeah, as you said, it's due to his typing, etc. And so yeah, we're gonna talk about those sets. We're gonna first go over Focus Sash. And so Focus Sash is pretty interesting because the whole point is essentially just getting up your hazards with this set, getting up as much as you can, and it's going to be your lead generally. I feel like though a lot of players should take advantage of the fact that your opponent is going to lead whatever anti-measure they have to this, and any competent builder has already prepped for this lead scenario in their heads when they go into their builds, because it's literally the most common lead scenario right now. So I feel like a lot of players, what they really should do when they're going into the building and when they're thinking of this, they should think of a way on how to be like anti the lead. Like for example, a very popular lead against Sam is Zapdos. That's one that comes up, you know, able to volt switch out and then you go to another mon that's faster. Or shoot, they even go to like the Rocky Helmet mon, so like you'll die before you even are able to get up, you know, your spike, because now the way mechanics work, and then we've been able to make sure that's the correct way on Showdown. If you try to go for CZ, you get hit Rocky Helmet, you don't get your hazards up when you faint.
Yeah, exactly. I've also seen people unironically starting to like pick up Corv usage again, just because it's able to beat most Samurott sets 1v1, except for SG, but we'll get to that. And you know, Rocky Helmet is definitely a very annoying item for Samurott to deal with. It wants to click its spammable move, but losing HP, especially given it's somewhat like only competent bulk, can definitely matter if you're trying to use it. If you're trying to like just layer your spikes and get as many up as possible.
Yeah, and I mean, so yeah, my point is like, so like when you're going to builder, you're generally speaking going to probably want to be leading like whatever is anti early. Like you don't want to be predictable, guys. I feel like when you're using Focus Sam, like sure, if you feel like you're in a situation where you can just lead Sam, get up your 2 spikes and be fine, because generally speaking you're only going to get at most 2, great. But versus, I feel like the best players, like you're going to have to angle it properly. If you really feel like you're trying to get 2 up, you're going to have to play it not as simplistic as a simple lead. Like I feel like Samurott is different than like lead Masquerada in the past, where you just lead it no matter what, because lead Masquerada really isn't applying that much offensive pressure, simply aside from just really knocking off, and the fact that it's able to you know, prevent Tusk from easily spinning off those hazards that it sets. But Sam can actually be a good offensive measure and a way to pressure out mons that were mentioned earlier, like King Gambit, Gotengo, shoot, he can pressure out Heatran, and so many other mons as well. So I feel like even if you have it as a focus as user, you should not forget about how you can also apply its pressure offensively. And I feel like, you know, even though it's your lead, if you have a somewhat type of backbone, don't just sack your lead, you know, try to keep it around a little bit if you possibly can. But when it comes to focus dash, generally speaking, you're going to be running Razor Share, you're going to run Ceaseless Edge, of course, you know, Surf, Aqua Jet is an option, Sacred Sword is an option, Encore is an option, Knockoff is an option. Is there any other options I'm forgetting?
Yeah, there's let's see. There's Sacred Sword. I personally don't think Sacred Sword is that valuable into the current metagame. I think if anything, you'd mainly just be running Sacred Sword for opposing lead Samurott, which is very common right now. I mean, Taunt, I think, is probably one of your best options on it. It kind of blanks any of those Corvs trying to defog on you, while also letting your damage stick into Roost Mons, or ones that just have recovery in general. And its speed tier is thankfully able to enable that just enough. You also have priority. I'm not sure if you already said Aqua Jet.
Yeah.
You did? Yeah, then Sucker Punch is obviously also an option. But I think Aqua Jet is just in general a little better. Just because you'll likely be seeing like dark resists coming in on you quite frequently once your sash is broken. So being able to like get that extra damage on like a Namorous, for example, can actually like really, really count. And I think you said the rest of the options already.
Yeah, no, 100%. No, you bring it some. You basically reaffirming. So we got Choice Scarf next. Choice Scarf, so in my opinion, Choice Scarf's the second set that I've used, and Choice Scarf's okay. I don't really, I'm not in love with the set. I think the fact that you're able to revenge certain mons while also applying the pressure of adding hazards is what makes it actually, like, you know, viable, because other than that, generally speaking, at least in my opinion, just from my perspective, like Choice Scarf mons that aren't able to provide some type of momentum for you, for like obviously the fact that the Choice Scarf, that generally speaking, going to be lacking power, is not really, you know, the most attractive thing. That's why Lando T Choice Scarf was so popular main generation back, being able to provide the momentum while also revenging and forcing out certain threats. I mean, you know, how could you not ask for a better Choice Scarfer in a lot of cases? So
right.
The thing that Sam does differently, that, you know, of course it doesn't provide momentum, but it is able to get up that layer of hazard. So yeah, what do you think about Choice Scarf?
Yeah, so I think Choice Scarf is definitely has some places on teams. In and of itself, it's speed control. You're able to outspeed pretty much the entire tier. Being able to eclipse Scarf Goldengo is definitely nice. However, I think the thing is, I think you put it really well. It is a bit limited, just because it lacks very consistent ways to use its Choice Scarf. So obviously, you mentioned U-turn. Samurott doesn't have that, and it doesn't have any it doesn't have trick or switcheroo or anything like that. So if you're going to be using Scarf, I think the way to be using it is positioning it against dark weak Pokemon. Basically, using the ability to cover not only the switch by setting that spike, but also just being threatening with that Ceasel's Edge to scare them out in the first place, gets you up that spike, and it can obviously be speed control, like I've said, and that can be useful, and that's why you would have your other clicks. Like knockoff could be also progress. You have that strong sharpness boosted razor shell or aqua cutter, but generally speaking, you're going to want to use it to get Ceasel's Edge, to use Ceasel's Edge and position it to use Ceasel's Edge, and eventually you can baby clean. That's definitely a possibility, but most of its utility in the early to mid game is layering those Ceasel's Edge layers and baby cleaning if you can ship opposing teams enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be yeah, I mean, in my opinion, it's okay. I mean, another thing you can run on this is knockoff, so you're also adding that utility element to it while you're pressuring out, so you're removing that Rocky helmet, for example, off of Corviknight. So when you're let's say you're Lando T or whatever mon that doesn't like is you turning out or maybe firing off a CC, you don't have to worry about the the chip recoil, etc.
Yeah.
So yeah, Sam, it does its job as a Scarfer. In my opinion, it's okay. I mean, where would you rank it as a Scarfer?
I don't think it's that great. I think if you're going to use a Scarfer, you are better off just using Goldengo or Enamorus. I think they are much better. They both have really strong, consistent options. You have strong spammable stab and Moonblast for Enamorus, and you also most notably have Healing Wish, which could be extremely powerful with a Choice Scarf boost, because you could just bring back a Kingambit or something, which has proven to be relevant in World Cup thus far.
Yeah.
And you also have whereas Goldengo, you have nice dual stab combination, but you have Trick. So and that's a very easy mid-ground click that can be really powerful into bulkier structures, which while Ceasel's Edge spike setting could definitely provide that value into bulkier structures, it's not as potentially impactful, especially when those hazards can potentially be removed through Great Tusk or as some other means. Like
Core Chain,
I would say
Core Chain Cinderace.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, Cinderace is annoying for Samurott, in spite of what you might think based on the typing.
Yeah.
But I think it's a decent Scarfer. I'm definitely with you. I don't think it's great, but it has a niche, and if you can enable that niche well, it can put in work. But I think if you just are looking at a Scarfer, you're probably going to favor other Pokemon.
For sure. So the next set we're going to get to is Samurott H with SD. Now you can run black glasses, you can run heavy duty boots, you can run Mystic Water. I mean, it's really a lot of different options. I guess you can run Life Orb as well. A lot of different options that you can go with when it comes to the SD. Now, you're generally speaking, when it comes to SD, you're going to always be running Ceasel's Edge and Aqua Cutter. You're really not going to change those. It's the last move that you would be changing. I mean, I personally think you're going to, generally speaking, go with a priority option. You can run knockoff. If you want to go full balance breaker, you can run knockoff, but generally speaking, you're going to try to want to, pressure offensive teams as well. And priority is such an important aspect of this current metagame with so many, strong and fast, powerful Pokemon. So yeah, I mean, SD, we saw Blunder. I'm gonna pull up. Let's see, is this game? No, not this game. That's the league game. Let me see. My computer is lagging for some reason. Okay, there we go. All right, so we got this game with Blunder, but yeah, I mean, you have used this set a lot more than me, so I really want you to dive deep into it.
All right, I got this. All right, so Swords Dance is, I think, an underrated set. I think it has a lot of application. It uses Ceaseless Edge in a very, very similar way to the Sash lead set, in that you could definitely position yourself such that you could just lay those Ceaseless Edge hazards. So even if you're reliant on Swords Dance for an end game, Ceaseless Edge has utility throughout the game, and you can set those. You can use that to start wearing away at your checks. Now, you did mention how the last slot can be sort of like open-ended, but I personally think priority is non-negotiable. I feel like you really need Jet or Sucker Punch, because otherwise you just completely fold the offense, which is a very much so a common structure very common structure right now. And even Balance isn't afraid to throw on like a good Scarfer, and I mean Holt is unbelievably common. So it's really difficult, in my opinion, to really drop priority unless you have like a really good reason for it. But I can't think of what that reason would be at the top of my head.
No, that's completely fair and correct as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Anyway, it can be very powerful at cleaning with priority as well. So not only do you have that really powerful sharpness boosted dual stab combination, but you can just create progress with Ceaseless Edge and just be threatening, like, because of the sheer power of Ceaseless Edge. And with a Swords Dance boost, you really can just cleave through weakened teams, and Ceaseless Edge enables that by setting up spikes and weakening those checks. And it can be really powerful while still having utility throughout the game. I think it does what Scarf wants to do, just a lot better, if that makes sense.
No, I mean that makes complete sense. I mean, being able to break through teams, and like you gotta think about also what you can pair with it, right? You can pair things like King Gambit, you can pair things like Dragonite, powerful breaker shoot SD, Iron Valiant. Being able to use Sam to not only get those spikes up, but also apply it to break down walls. For example, like Valiant is really annoyed by a Moon or annoyed by Corviknight. To be able to break down those walls, get them down to where late game. And it's a funny thing you bring that up, because like, for example, Iron Valiant really needs let me see, it really needs that boosted knockoff, especially to, generally speaking, with like Terra Dark, for example, to get past like a Moon. So it being able to fire off a very strong dark move, Ceaseless Edge, get hazards up, and also take it down a notch while also not removing the item is a pretty like nice thing for a Valiant if you want to pair it with it.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. And something else I forgot to mention about Swords Dance that I love is that it uses its defensive typing so good, so well, because not only does you have a ton of item options, but that defensive typing really comes into play if you're going to be using it as a sort of mid-game progress maker with Ceaseless Edge, and for eventually getting that setup opportunity to click Swords Dance and truly become like that end game threat. That typing can really let you come in on Goldengo and such, King Gambit, and even like choice locked Dragapult locked into Shadow Ball. It can you got Heatran, Magma Storm. It can be really useful, and that's part of why I also like Leftovers as an option. You didn't mention Leftovers. I think Leftovers is great on it. It can also be really paired great with a Healing Wish support. It pairs great with Scarf and Amorous, in my opinion. I mean, I think Swords Dance is a very like powerful set, and I think a lot of people should like. I think like the lead set is good and all, but I feel like people should really try Swords Dance more. It can be so good with the right support, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, for sure, 100%. And the last set we're going to talk about, guys, is Assault Vest. I would say this is probably, I don't want to say it's his least popular set, because another reason why I definitely want to highlight Swords is because I feel like it's not used enough. And so I feel like Assault Vest is probably used more than Swords Dance, because of the defensive utility that it can have. But I mean, there are better Assault Vest dark type I would say, let me not say user, and that I would say Hoopa U does it better. But nonetheless, Sam is able to use Assault Vest pretty decently as far as I'm concerned. As I said, I'm not a big fan of set, but I do feel like nonetheless it is worth the mention and something for you guys to definitely consider. I mean, how do you feel about it?
I think it's fine. I don't think I definitely think if your team is looking like really Dengo weak or a Pult weak, really having AV can be a nice clutch option. it can really help you take some nice trades that maybe other sets wouldn't be able to take. Especially because it has so many like resists on the special side. So that could be really relevant. It can even let you take on some like other situational threats like Iron Moth, which I've definitely seen a decent fit. And that can definitely like you could just like suddenly live like maybe a sludge wave for max and just like pick it off with a ceaseless edge into prio, or just like kill it outright. I definitely don't think it's that great. But I think if you have like Healing Wish support or have some way to give it some more sustain, it can definitely be a decent option because the more times you can click Ceaseless Edge, while also just being threatening, the better, right?
For sure, 100%. Well, I feel like we've covered basically all that really honestly needs to be covered with this mon. So personally, guys, I feel like it is. It goes without saying how amazing this mon is. I don't feel like we've gotten to the point where it is, even though I'm sure you guys have seen on the survey, I don't think it's gotten to the point where it is broken and too much for the tier. But I do think that it has, I wouldn't say exposed the problem because we all knew it was a problem, but it's made the problem of our hazard control worse. And I don't blame that on Sam. I blame that on Game Freak.
Yeah, no, fully.
And I feel like there's nothing that really, there's no, I don't feel like there's really any justifiable tiering decision that could even fix it. Like you guys can say, well, you can suspect, go to angle, but it's like that doesn't really help our hazard problem because there's not many good defoggers. Maybe in the DLC, if we see that, okay, we get a defog tutor and we see more defog options pop up, and it's like, okay, if Gholdengo's still being this enormous presence that's preventing it, maybe we revisit that. But for right now, it is what it is, and we gotta live with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, how do you feel about it as a mon overall? Do you feel about it in the tier right now? Like, what do you
I love Samurott. Just to kind of put it in a nutshell, I think Samurott, Hisui and Samurott is one of the most awesome, most interestingly well-designed Pokemon that I think we've seen in Gen 9 and maybe in a while. I feel like it's such an interesting mon because it really does really helps us understand the power of spikes while also appreciating how much pressure matters when it comes to making progress. Especially knockoff is such a great example of that because it can just it's really good at just being a good progress making option, removing items, just item disruption, just so useful in almost every case. But the power that it has really, and especially on strong dark types like Weavile from last gen, it really highlights that consistent options are just gonna always be good, especially when they have such a powerful side effect. And even aside from that, Samurott's kit is so cool. There's so many interesting ways to take advantage of Ceaseless Edge and enable Ceaseless Edge. And I think it's well balanced by its sort of weird stat spread. It definitely, this is a mon that wants to be way faster than it is and maybe even a bit stronger. And that could definitely show sometimes. And I think that's a major limitation of Samurott. But I think in spite of that, it's a really cool presence in the metagame. And I don't think it's one that's broken personally. I think you summarized the hazard problem quite well. But I just really love Samurott. I really want to see more people exploring it, and you could definitely expect me to. I've been trying rest talk lately. It's not very good, but it's funny,
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's all I have to say. Yeah, just use Samurott. It's a really fun mon.
Yeah, no, it truly is phenomenal, guys. So guys, yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below, what you've been using with it, how effective it's been for you, and how you feel about the mon overall. Do you feel like it's added non-competitiveness to the tier? Do you feel like it's too much of the tier? Do you enjoy its presence in the tier? Please do let me know. I know one thing for sure, Cinderace loves its presence in the tier because it gives us a reason to keep using it.
That's true. It's so funny because you'd think Cinderace, it would hate this thing, and it doesn't switching into it. That's true, but port change really is one of the few moves that actually makes you sort of consider when and when not to use Ceaseless Edge.
Yeah,
And I
no,
think that's
it's
it's a
100%.
cool dynamic. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when Cinderace was announced, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's not gonna be as good," because I'm like, I don't care what y'all think. I finally got another hazard removal option.
Yeah,
This
true.
is
It's
great.
such a. I mean, post nerf Cinderace is really cool, but that's probably for another time.
All right, guys. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching the YouTube channel. Please subscribe. Please like. Uzma channel will be in the description below. We're out, guys. Peace.
All right, bye.